All right, we're going over System Concepts, Article 25, Embracing the Method. Sometimes it is difficult for us to subjugate ourselves to the method that will give us control over our lives. We do not like the limitations imposed on us, such as the degrees of advancement and the classes of the soul. We feel that spirituality is all about freedom from the shackles of labels and definitions. However, advancement in the spiritual degrees of perception are achieved precisely by layering names and appellations within our psyche. It requires dedication and focus to reach any goal in life. This is especially important since we fight ourselves throughout our entire advancement. The reason why it is so nearly impossible to grow our perception is because it goes against everything we believe it to be. We aspire to revert ourselves from coarseness to purity. However, we actually need to increase the coarseness details of our perception to align ourselves with our coarse reality. We need to immerse ourselves in the environment to help us through our own internal resistance for advancement. The idea is not to annul to our environment by becoming mindless drones. This would again negate our own growth, since we need more details and discernments to align ourselves with our reality. We have a tendency to become distracted in our spiritual work by spending time on unnecessary endeavors. We need a strong and focused environment to assist us in increasing our desire for the development of our perception. And here's a quote. Yet to those who remain without any merit, it is because they do not have a strong desire. Hence all the three above-mentioned inclinations operate in them together in mixture. Sometimes they are lustful, sometimes envious, and sometimes they crave honor. Their desire breaks to pieces, and they are like children who crave everything they see and cannot attain anything. Hence their value is like the straw and bran that remains after the flower. It is known that the beneficial force and the detrimental force go hand in hand. In other words, as much as someone can benefit, so it can harm. Hence, since the force of one person is greater than all the beasts and the animals of all times, one's harmful force supersedes them all as well. From the article Introduction to the book Panim Mirot U'Masbirot by Bala Sulam. No one can reach any meaningful spiritual degree without a concrete method to attain an explicit goal. We tend to share with each other blanketed quotes that give us a feeling of support. However, they are empty and lack any definitive details to actually help us advance. They are very superficial, and that is precisely why they attract so many people. The truth is simple, but requires effort to understand and feel its subtlety. Here's a quote. Number 15. The third manner is abstract form. Once the form has been revealed while clothed in some matter, our imaginations can abstract it from any matter altogether and perceive it regardless of any substance. Such as that are the virtues and the good qualities that appear in moral books when we speak of properties of truth and falsehood, anger and strength, etc. When they are devoid of any matter, we ascribe them merit or demerit, even when they are abstract. You should know that this third manner is unacceptable to the prudent erudite, since it is impossible to rely on it 100%, since being examined while not clothed in matter, they might err in them. Take, for example, one with idealistic morals, meaning one who is not religious. Because of his intensive engagement in the merit of truth, while in its abstract form, that person might decide that even if he could save people from death by telling them a lie, he may decide that even if the whole world is doomed, he will not utter a deliberate lie. This is not the view of Torah, since nothing is more important than saving lives. Yoma 82a, from the article Preface to the Book of the Zohar by Bala Sulam. Abstract forms remove our grounding in reality, matter, and slow our progress to a crawl. It is vital for us to constantly remember that the goal of creation is to improve our lives while in our physical bodies on earth. Any imagination of some other reality is foolish and unnecessary. We correct our perception by maturing our understanding and feeling of it. Maturing is to understand that love is not a shallow concept, but a deep and meaningful expression of symbiotic control over each other to increase our collective power together. Here's a quote. Indeed, had one learned the forms of truth and falsehood when they are clothed in matter, he would comprehend only with respect to their benefit or harm to matter. In other words, after the many ordeals the world has been through, having seen the multitude of ruin and harm that deceitful people have caused with their lies, and the great benefit that truthful people have brought by restricting themselves to saying only words of truth, they have agreed that no merit is more important than the quality of truth, and there is no such disgrace as the quality of falsehood. And if the idealist had understood that, he would certainly agree to the view of Torah and would find that falsehood that saves even one person from death is far more important than the entire merit and praise of the abstract quality of truth. Thus, there is no certainty at all in these concepts of the third manner, which are abstract forms, much less with abstract forms that have never clothed in any substance. Such concepts are nothing but a waste of time. From the article Preface to the Book of Zohar by Baal HaSulam. Sharing our discernment in the group is crucial to keeping us grounded throughout our development. The group must collectively prepare for this endeavor. This is why this interaction is only possible with a Phase 3 group. Phase 2 groups that are in the spiritual society framework must be kept superficial and not be dragged into a detailed connection. And here's a quote. Make for yourself a Rav is a different story. That is, sometimes among the friends one wishes to execute, make for yourself a Rav toward another. However, this is specifically among friends who have great care and strict rigor, and not everyone is suitable for it. But this is no longer considered love of friends, meaning what love of friends requires, since there is no connection to the work, as you wrote to me. From the letter number 37, in the book The Social Writings by Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag. We need to demand depth in our growth. Superficial connection between friends will not lead to any spiritual advancement. We collect discernments on the behavior of ourselves and others towards our next phase to decide the success of our maturing perception. Then our internality will rule our desires instead of external circumstances. Here's a quote. The externality rule when Israel does not demand depth in their work. The above-mentioned rule of the externality is called the exile of Israel among the nations of the world. Through it, they inflict many forms of suffering, degradation, and ruin upon the Israeli nation. However, to be brief, we will explain only what is revealed through a general observation, which is the general purpose. This is the idol worshipping and superstition, as it is written, but mingle themselves with the nations and learn their works. This is the most terrible and dangerous poison which destroys the souls of Israel, as it brings their vanities closer to human reason. In other words, they do not require great depth to understand and thus plant the foundations of their work in the hearts of the children of Israel. And although an Israeli man is quite unfit to accept their nonsense, in the end they do induce idolatry and filth down to blatant heresy until he says all faces are equal. From the article, A Handmaid That Is Heir to Her Mistress by Baal HaSulam. This is why the spiritual society alone is not enough to get us across the spiritual barrier. We need a group of unique individuals tied together within the framework of the spiritual society with the precise goal of reaching internal power to gain control over our lives. Convincing ourselves that we have crossed the spiritual barrier before we have actually attained it will destroy our desire to ever reach the goal. It sabotages our effort, and significantly delays our progress. External acceptance that the goal has not been obtained will not be enough. It requires cleaning up the terminology of the phases to know exactly where we stand on the spiritual ladder of attainment. The attainment of a degree, rung of the ladder, is being capable of expressing it. Reading the description of a phase is insufficient to help us determine our position. Our ego will deceive us into thinking that we have reached a high degree. This fallacy reduces the envy required to advance. The result is that we use less mental and emotional exertion, causing reduction of the necessary intensity, thus causing us to plateau. Here's a quote. Order of conveying the wisdom. The most successful way for one who wishes to learn the wisdom is to search for a genuine Kabbalist and follow all his instructions until one is rewarded with understanding the wisdom in one's own mind, meaning the first discernment. Afterwards, one will be rewarded with its conveyance, mouth to mouth, which is the second discernment. And after that, understanding writing, which is the third discernment. Then one will have inherited all the wisdom and its instruments from his teacher with ease, and will be left with all one's time to develop and expand. Indeed, in the first way, too, not everyone succeeds. This is because the majority, having attained, become complacent and stop subjugating themselves to their teacher sufficiently, as they are not worthy of the conveyance of the wisdom. In this case, the sage must hide the essence of the wisdom from them, and they shall die without wisdom, entering but not exiting. This is so because there are harsh and strict conditions in conveying the wisdom, which stem from necessary reasons. Hence, very few are regarded highly enough by their teachers for them to find them worthy of this thing, and happy are the rewarded. From the article, The Teaching of the Kabbalah and Its Essence by Bala Sulam. The goal of the teacher is to increase their own internal power. The entire will to receive is connected and controlled by the same power source. We need more individuals to consciously connect to it and use it for expression and manipulation of themselves and others in the system. This will result in increased power shared through everyone. This is why the teacher will invest time and effort only in those who will be successful in this mission. They have no patience to spend on those who will squander the importance of the goal for frivolous pursuits. Those who do not exert themselves correctly in the environment will plateau and be covered in a shell of impurity. They cannot advance and stand idle watching someone claim exclusivity of their spiritual advancement. Here's a quote. However, along with all those contemplations, when they begin to consider themselves according to their prejudice and their self-interests regarding desires and pursuit of honors, they must unanimously agree and unite against us. Thus, they wholeheartedly and unequivocally resolve that it is better for them not to unite with us. This is so, although among themselves they are very remote and so different from one another that they can never agree on anything. They might even hate each other to such an extent that they cannot bear being in the same room with one another, and all wish to kill each other. Still, against us they all unite. And since they are biased because of the will to receive in them, and bribe blinds the eyes of the wise, they promptly see the opposite of what they thought of us. And after all the praises and virtues they found in us, that each of us is praiseworthy and honorable, once they have made their resolution, they quickly execute the verdict, passionately and zealously, since we spoiled their reputation with our views. Thus, on the one hand, they see that truth is on our side, and on the other hand, our way is burdensome to them. To excuse themselves, they have no other choice but to destroy us and obliterate our name from the face of the earth. They toil and strain for that, to disperse us to every direction, and they plot and conspire how to fail us and place stumbling blocks on our way, using all sorts of means, legitimate and illegitimate alike, even if these means contradict the human spirit and the spirit of Torah. They do not care because they see that there will be no persistence to their will if we have any domination and expansion of our goal to wholehearted and honest people, for then we will have the power to show them the truth. Letter number 8 from the Social Writings by Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag. The tension resulting from the negation of the method will strengthen those who are advancing. However, we do not have to stand idle to those who mock us. Criticism is needed to scrutinize the concepts and internalize them, which is necessary in order to improve the method. Those who wish to negate the method because of the inconsistent and shallow understanding will not advance. The goal of internal power needs to be the covenant that keeps the group connected. We are born unique, but with the same one force controlling us. The solution is to unite the two dichotomies together through the intention, the screen. And here's the first workshop question. How do we increase our focus on advancement? Gabriel.
Well, we can perceive how when we do not focus on the goal, how things start going down, and how plateauing is not beneficial. How your perception just breaks down, and it's not worth living anymore, because really any other pleasure that you get from this world, worthless. So focusing on our advancements as the means to attain, and fulfill completely the emptiness that we all feel. So pretty much ascribing to it the reason why we exist, so we can become the creator.
Maria.
I think that we can increase the focus by never letting go of that notion that everything it stems from our perception, and therefore it's always this. It's necessary. It's regarding the future, and it's regarding yourself, and that requires steps. And the only thing I can think of to remind myself is, and to always question is, it deals with responsibility, so that I don't have to then blame it on the externality, but rather realize that I'm the research and the researched. I'm the researcher and researching myself. So it requires more depth, I think, and the environment will help me do that. Trying to clean these concepts constantly within the environment.
Mary.
I liked what Maria said. And in addition to that, and increasing our desire for depth and the details and the concepts of the work, discussing the concepts with like-minded individuals, and just really focusing on those concepts and understanding them and embodying them. Next.
Mark.
Well, we increase our focus on advancement by exactly what Maria and Mary just said. Of course, all of this, as it becomes internal, it's exciting. It's something that I want to know more about. I want to find out more about it, and the only way I can do that is by focusing on the goal of advancement. And I also do this through each one of you. It's envy. It's a great envy to see that others have advanced and gone farther. Well, I want the same thing, and it helps increase my focus because of this envy. Thank you.
Moshe.
Well, I just want to continue. I mean, like the concept of envy, I mean, it's just like another tool to increase your focus. And just like everything else, you have to use everything around you to advance. That's basically using your ego. When you use your ego, you're actually helping yourself advance. So I would say envy is an amazing tool, just like anything else out there. All your experiences that you go through, use them, and that will definitely increase your focus.
Rick.
We begin to increase our focus by knowing where we're at, remembering what our goal is. So to move forward, to advance, I don't think about where I'm at. I focus on where I'm going, my next degree, my next state, next phase, and push towards that, reaching always forward beyond where I'm at. Then I remember that I have a great environment. So I use my environment, my friends, my tools, to take and pry out my discernments and scrutinies and clean my concepts, to seek that alignment to where I'm going, which is my next degree. Whether it's across the barrier, across the parsa, final correction, doesn't matter. It is the focus and the use of the tools, and always seeking what is the next, yearning for what you're yearning for, not waiting for it to come to you. Seek it out.
Robin.
I agree with everything that's been said, and I'm trying to think of what I can add. And envy is huge, being in the group is huge. Staying in contact with this group and with what is revealed here and the concepts that are shared is big. And also reading the books when I have an opportunity, and listening to the Rob, of course. But I think, yeah, when I think of it, I think of keeping your head above the herd and be looking and using your ego, I guess, to keep above the herd and to keep going higher.
I agree with everything that has been said. The idea is that when we're doing discernments, it really has to be focused on our next degree. And even if we're reading content that has nothing to do with our next degree, the idea is to still try to see how can I use that to advance to my next degree. It's always like zoning it in to advancement. And it can just really, by having that zoning in, by having that focus, you can really reduce all the unnecessary and impossible discernments and really focus on what can actually move you forward. And it's at the end of the day, it's always about using your own desire and investing in the environment to get you to your next degree. And it's that constant circle of your desire, using the environment for you to advance. The second question: what is the correct way to express criticism in the group? Caesar. Gabriel.
Well, with the correct intention, if you always have to know that what you're pursuing is in order to make you advance, right? So if you have to be conscious that this criticism, you're pretty much doing it to yourself. So, if it's for yourself, really be sincere and be really say, and you have to see how it actually helps advance a person. And always has to do with that, because there's really no other way to it, not really necessary movement than to advance.
Maria.
Well, I think this question is tied directly to what's the best way to receive the criticism as well. Because correct doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to be painful. And in observing in the environment where you have this covenant and this agreement that we're helping each other clean concepts, and sometimes this cleaning can be painful because I'm responsible for the way that I'm perceiving it, and I can only receive the help or the push, but I have to actually engage in that cleaning. So just to remember, I think that it could be painful because we can observe someone else in a shell, and we could say, wow, I can really see this right now, and then question, well, what's going to happen when you're there? Like, how are you going to receive it? So I think it's with truly being in this covenant where we are helping each other clean the concepts, and knowing that it's for our own growth, it's for our own advancement.
Mary.
Yes, and keeping the criticism primarily, about the concepts to refine them and discuss them and clarify them versus, criticizing each other. Kind of focus on the work itself, the concepts.
Mark.
And to remember that this criticism, it's critical, or it's a necessary dimension in what we do. To not become complacent, to not accept everything that's being said, but to question. And criticism isn't always negative. Criticism can be very, very positive too, but to always keep that questioning mind, not to become complacent, not to say, well, Mary said this, so it must be true. Continue to pry and probe. Thank you.
Moshe.
Well, basically just that criticism itself is actually a great thing, great tool when you attach a certain goal to it. So, here our goal is always to reveal more of the Creator and to increase our internal power. And we can do that through our discernments, and criticism is just one of those discernments. And again, it's the covenant that we have in the group, is that we're allowed to express criticism towards concepts. It's never directed at somebody, but maybe somebody that has an incorrect view of a concept. And that's very, very much allowed here and necessary. So I think, and it's important. So, so that's how I see criticism anyway.
Rick.
To criticize means that you went in and scrutinized it. You went in and made your own discernments, either with the friends in the group or with others. And then you come back with a detailed outline of why you disagree, whether it's in the group as a whole or as an individual working on with your individual or whatever. The point is that you don't just come to criticize to throw things out there because you don't like this or like that or the way someone spoke to you. That's learning to nullify and listen to yourself, because you're just looking at your flaws. When you come to criticize concepts, perceptions, ideas, then you come to debate. You don't come to close off. You come to open up, to see the boundaries as a way to stretch it out and find different perceptions within it, different concepts within the question that you're asking. Thank you.
Robin.
I really like everything that he said, but since everybody here, everyone is part of you, is all the Creator, I think the best way of expressing criticism is in the form of questions. If you have something that you think, or see something that appears like it needs criticism, I think the best way to do is probe it with questions to make but to open a way to refine what someone else in the group may be saying until it becomes more clear to both of you. And through questionings, I think it leads to discernments.
Yochanan writes, I'm not sure there's a correct way to express criticism, even from a low or immature criticism, as we as a group can raise it to a beneficial level. One of the things I actually like about this group is that we actually do raise a lot of criticism, but there is a correct way to do it and an incorrect way to do it. An incorrect way is when it sounds like you're attacking someone. It sounds like you're going against them, you are either nullifying them or negating them, and that's the incorrect way to do criticism, because then what happens is that the tension removes the ability to actually discern the criticism and give it a valid look. So the idea is to always, when you're expressing criticism, to keep the tension to a minimum and make it sound like you're not attacking the concept, but trying to clarify the concept. And by asking for clarification of the concept, what that will do two things. One, it will help the person who's asking to clarify the concept for themselves. Maybe they got it wrong. And the second thing is allow for the rest of the group to find out maybe they did get it wrong and can correct it. And, as people have seen, we've done a lot of changes in system concepts, in changing the way we do the sessions and rewriting articles. So the idea is that the collaboration is very important in the group, and it's very important for people to express their opinions so that the method itself can be improved not only for themselves, but for others as well. The third question, how do we keep ourselves grounded? Caesar. Gabriel.
Well, by realizing that there is none else besides the internal power within me to change that perception of an ever-changing state to a constant internal power, instead of focusing on your regular desires, having that sense of self in this immature perception that wants this, now wants that, just like a kid, to this ever-growing, ever-expanding internal power. And everything goes back to that every single time. And this way we can keep focus and be grounded, so we are not led astray. Pretty much having the goal clear in our minds.
Jenny. Maria.
I would say I wasn't sure what the question was as far as when to be grounded, during the work or during a criticism and so forth. But I would say that remembering, always having that goal in mind, and kind of to not create like a short circuit. Even in electricity, you need the ground, but it's because I think you have to have the reason and the faith above reason together. Like always, not having one without the other doesn't create something to clean with. And even to be grounded during criticism, that's even advancement, because how could you want to advance if there's nothing to criticize? Then there's nothing to clean. Then one could be plateauing. And unless I have something that I can be working with, then that in itself is a reason for advancement, or an opportunity for advancement.
Mary.
Yes, in the moment, you can stay grounded by observing your emotions and the situation, what's happening or what you're feeling from the side, objectively. And if it's kind of a more general need for grounding, you can connect to the environment, your individual, if you're working with an individual, the environment, reading articles, that sort of thing. Just stay in the environment.
Mark.
Yes, this environment is crucial, and not to become complacent, not to feel satisfied, not to feel superior in any way, to remain humble and expectant, to always look forward and look at situations or discernments as necessary or unnecessary. Is this something that I can work with? Is this something I can use? And just a constant questioning attitude will keep me grounded. Thank you.
Moshe.
Yeah, basically just that. It's just basically a constant state of disturbance. Always, viewing my reality and then exiting my reality and viewing it from the side. And from higher place, to understand the system, how it works. Basically, to always align your sense of self with the Creator. Stay grounded in that.
Rick.
I don't know, staying grounded. Is that like doing 110 through traffic and your ego's going, yeah, we're in charge. We don't need no Creator. Someone told me that. I wonder if they were grounded at that moment. Staying grounded is understanding where you're at, what your goal is, where you're aiming and what you're seeking. And always finding a way to align that, to find your alignment with your future self, your internal power, your creator. And when you start to lose sight of that, remember that you're the operator. You're the one in charge. You're the one that makes the rules. So you need to keep things under control so it benefits everyone, not just yourself.
Robin.
I have to agree. It's keeping your emotions, interacting with the environment, analyzing them with your mind, and making discernments and keeping that process going without being lifted away or imagining things or thinking you're someplace you're not.
There's two things. There's we have reason, we have faith. Reason is what you currently feel, what you currently sense. And it's very important not to ignore that. But at the same time, you also want to focus on your faith, which is reaching your future state. And the idea is that if you focus on one without the other, you either get stuck where you are, or you just live in an imagination of where you will be and never actually reach it. And the idea is to be that middle line where you're constantly trying to ground yourself where you are, but still try to raise yourself to your future and then bring your future to your current state. And then every time you've got this cycle where your future becomes your present and then you're moving on to the next. So it's like you've got some people which aren't grounded because they're asking questions but not looking for answers. So they love to ask questions of, what is the meaning of life, but they don't then scrutinize how does it actually help them in their daily lives. And the idea is to really be grounded, to know where you are, what is your next phase. Don't skip phases just to feel like you're advancing. It is to really be critical with yourself where you are, and so that you can constantly keep a check through the environment of what your next step will be and how to actually get there. What do you think of the article?
I like the article, but it's a lot. It's there's a lot of information in there. There's a lot of stuff to absorb, and I especially liked that letter number 8. It seemed to explain to me some of the critiques and attacks that certain people have had against this whole process. For some reason, when letter number 8 was read in this article, it seemed to fit. It seemed to make things fall into place for me. So I really liked the portion in there that covered letter number 8. Thank you.
I agree. We've seen a lot of people come into system concepts being all very positive and stuff. And then when realizing that the work they actually have to do and that it's hard, they prefer to just fight against the process and say that they're free and they can do whatever they want. And then they stay where they are instead of actually advancing. And then they're jealous of those who actually advance, and then they just want to negate it instead of actually reaching it. But I would say on that matter that it's okay that people respond that way. It can just really help the people that are advancing to show them how it's still in its initial phase. It's still special. It's still unique. It hasn't become a common thing. And this is how it is in any sort of new work that is applied. We've always got people which are against it until it becomes common. And then everyone's like, well, it was always like this. Why would it be any different?
The important thing about this article is that constructive criticism is what builds the framework for what we're creating here. This isn't like something that's, is constructed yet. It's being built right before our eyes. So when you have a criticism, whether you understand that criticism or not, it is important to share it with everyone, or at least with your individual, and bring it out. So that, one, you can either clean the concept and perception, or you can help others clean their concepts and perceptions.
I think another thing that I observe also is having to do with criticism, is observing even how we are all progressing. We can see and understand another because we've said those dirty concepts ourselves, and we're observing. And I said, yes, I can connect to say, I remember when I was at that place and so forth. And then also look up to see what discernments or what new concepts I'm getting from others that I haven't yet gone through. So it's all in this environment that we know that's what we're doing. So it's just continuation of cleaning the concept.
I would say the number one criticism that I've received against system concepts is never the knowledge. With the knowledge, people are okay with, they like it, they like what we do here, they like the sessions, they like the videos. Their problem is in applying those concepts. They have a problem with saying where a person is in the phases, what class they are, who to work with, when it is actually applied onto their lives, and then they feel them as limitations. That is where most people don't like it, and then they fight against it. So they have no problem with the knowledge part. They have the problem with applying it to themselves and actually advancing in actuality.
Well, and what Maria just said too, to have a little bit of empathy on things that that others may be going through, but also to have the wherewithal or the faith to realize that this also happens in our future, that there are things that people that are advanced beyond us are going through that I can't comprehend yet, and to be humble enough to accept that and to learn from that, or to look forward to that, anticipate that. And the other thing I really like was the very beginning of the article, where it, and I can't remember the exact words, but it seems so fitting, is how we constantly fight ourselves. We are constantly at war with our own inclination. So we get in our own way. It's almost as if some of this stuff would actually be fairly easy if I could just get out of my own damn way and do these things. But I'm constantly stepping on myself in the process.
I totally agree. Sometimes, we don't want to advance, and we actually fight our environment. The environment wants to help us advance, and we fight it. We're like, no, I don't want to advance, and we're not even aware. We're not actually saying that. We're saying, oh, yeah, I can advance. I don't need the group. I don't need the environment. I can do it without you. And they fight the environment, and sometimes the environment prevails because the person invested in the environment beforehand. And if the person did not invest in the environment beforehand, then the environment cannot prevail, and then the person will normally just leave. And might come back later, and might not. The idea is to also be very accepting of people that do not want to advance. It's totally okay. There's no question in spirituality. But the idea is that people that are advancing can look at those examples and learn from them and use them to actually scrutinize them and gain great discernments from them. And a lot of the articles that have been written have been because of people that, let's say, have left system concepts, and we were able to gain great discernments on why they left. And I think this article is a great summary of many of those pressing issues.
Well, that portion in the article of Rabash where he says that make of yourself a friend, a robber, and that there's not everybody that can do it. It's not, makes that distinction in that this small sentence or two. that's the definition. I mean, system concepts is work. It's meant for those that really want to advance, and not in an imaginary way, but know that there is a way to do it, and that you can do it, but it's work. It's not going to happen magically by sitting with everybody else in a circle. It's just not going to happen.
All right, I think we'll stop here and enter the after party.